When I first tried to eat raw vegan, I never felt full, and that feeling kept on leading me back to binging. Today, I'm over 6 years binge free, haven't binged for over that amount of time, and 2.5 years raw vegan now. So in this video, what I'm going to do is explain to you how chasing that feeling of fullness can lead you back to binging, and how to actually transition to a raw vegan lifestyle successfully without falling off. So to give you a little bit of context, I was chasing the feeling of fullness for 3 years. When I would feel emotions come up and I'd feel overwhelmed, and especially at the start of trying to transition, this urge to eat more and the comfort that would give me would end up leading me back to binging. And it was a constant back and forth. Something would happen, it would come up, I would not feel full after a meal, I would want more. And then after that feeling of wanting more, I would binge. And then when I would binge, I would then feel full and comfortable. And then I would feel the guilt and the shame. And then after that, it would either be the next day, I'd be telling myself, I'll do better this time, or tomorrow I'll make sure to do better, or I'll stop. And then it just repeated itself. And this cycle repeated itself for 3 years for me, continually. And over time, it got worse and worse. The binges got more full on. I became more attached to food, and I couldn't find a way out. So what did I do? What specifically did I do to never chase that feeling of fullness again? And in addition to that, transition successfully. So the first thing I would like to say about chasing the feeling of fullness, there's one big element, there's two parts that really come into it. The first part is, how much are you restricting your calories? Because when transitioning to a raw vegan lifestyle, we're already coming from probably a calorie overload or a lot of calories. And when we make that transition, usually what was happening to me and what I see is that we restrict heavily. That sometimes can come in the form of fasting. It's okay. It can also come into the form of just having a lot less, because having more fruits and vegetables is going to be a lot more, it's going to have lesser calories than something like bread and pastas and things like this, especially when you get into junk food. Junk food, a lot more calories. So the number one thing to be doing is to become aware of this, to become aware of how many calories that you're having, and also then to become aware of how many calories that you're having when transitioning to being raw vegan. Because if you're used to having 4,000 calories a day, right, and you end up transitioning to 2,000 calories a day, that is going to affect, one, your stomach is going to be a lot more expanded. So that's going to affect that feeling of fullness. And two, having fruits and vegetables, and also nuts and seeds to a degree, is a lot lighter. It's much, much lighter than having bread, pastas and rices and burgers and these types of things, that you'll have that feeling of fullness a lot more due to the level of overconsumption that you're having. So my recommendation to anyone transitioning is, you have to up the calories. You just have to. Unless you're going through the process of doing a fast, your stomach shrinks, and then you transition. But if you're like someone in my case, I wasn't even able to do that. I wasn't able to even complete a fast because this urge was so intense in me, and the comfort, which I'll get to in the second part, of the binge eating and the comfort foods was so much that it was almost impossible to me. And it was, I could only do a couple of days of actually fasting properly. So that's the first thing. Get an understanding of how many calories you're currently intaking and eat an abundance of healthy raw foods. Be abundant with this. Don't be restricting it, especially at the start. Because what's going to happen is that cycle is going to repeat itself over again. The second element is when you had been going on the amount of time like I did, which was 20 years of overconsumption, eating whatever I wanted, like not paying that much attention or not really caring a little bit, but caring more about what the food would give me and the comfort that brought and the feeling of like being satiated and a bit like comatose. That feeling, it's almost like, it's a drug because it like puts you to sleep. You can kind of have that feeling of escaping reality. And that's how I felt. Like when I would have that comfortability and be really full, I felt like I could relax. And I was just so used to that. And what happened is doing that for such a long time, I had gotten so much comfort around that. And what happened is when I transitioned to raw vegan, in actual fact, it got worse. It didn't get better. Because what would end up happening is I was detoxing. I would experience more cravings. I'd be in a calorie deficit. So all this intensified the feeling. So when I actually went and was eating raw and I wasn't full, I would chase that feeling. And what would happen is I would binge even more. So I would go even harder. And this spiral is extremely detrimental. It really, it caused me so much pain in my life. And I got so out of control. My life got so out of control as a result of it because of chasing that feeling constantly. So a couple of things I'm going to recommend. The second thing, other than not restricting calories, having a lot more abundance of healthy raw foods, the second thing is slow the transition. If you're feeling that you aren't able to go straight from where you're currently at to raw vegan, you don't have to be perfect. Like you can transition to being vegan and then transition to being raw vegan. And that is just as successful. It's exactly what I did. It's what I recommend to a lot of people that I work with. It's just as successful because it's one more step. Like, how can I expect myself to go from where I currently am, which was eating whatever I wanted, junk food, meat, burgers, pizzas, like overindulging so much, to the point of straight to raw vegan and even fasting to a degree? It's not going to happen. It could happen. In my experience, it didn't happen. It kept on not happening. Eventually, there would come a time where I would want to experience that fullness and the obsession to food, and thinking about it would overtake me, and I'd end up giving up, and I'd end up binging again, and then it would start all over. So transition slowly. You don't have to be perfect. Okay, maybe stay vegan. Like, it really depends where you're at, yeah? Try going vegan. First thing, try doing that. And then try going high raw. Okay, but having a larger vegan meal at night and the rest raw. And then trying to do raw vegan and then step into fasting. You cannot expect to go one thing without the other. Like, it's too harsh of a transition. So it's not something I recommend. The third is that how you're managing your emotions before you end up eating. So this is a very big one, because if something's happened that day, I've become angry, or I'm in fear about something, or someone said something to me that I didn't like and it's made me feel a certain way. Like, emotions are all about feelings. And when our feelings become heightened, or when we are uncomfortable and we're not knowing how to handle a situation, we want to gravitate towards something comfortable. It's a natural, like, survival mechanism of humans. We are uncomfortable, we want to gravitate towards being comfortable. So when we're experiencing these emotions, it's very important to do a couple of things. Depending on what comes up, and let's say, someone has ended up, being angry at me, and I felt bad as a result of that. It's important for me to take some time to process what's happened. So to process that, whether that's going for a walk, whether that's writing it down, I always recommend putting the situation on paper, so it becomes more of an exercise of okay, let's have a look at this and start dealing with it. Because a lot of the time, these emotions and these feelings just keep on going on, and we don't end up dealing with them. So come to a time, once we process it, put it down on paper. The second thing is share it with someone that you trust. And it is important to vent to a degree, but make this more of a session in addition to venting, if it's needed, to actually looking at, okay, what could I have done? What could I have changed? What was the fear that was going on here? Actually look at this from a deeper level. Because if we just let our emotions control us from situations that come up, it's going to make it that much harder when transitioning to be able to remain consistent and stable with food. And look, situations might come up where maybe we're grieving and they're a lot more extreme. Like, that's where talking with someone, asking for help, like in these areas, is going to be really beneficial. Because when I started to really ask for help in understanding these things, it took the pressure off me and I felt supported. Like, there's plenty of avenues to be able to gain help. When you're talking with someone, when you're in communities, when you're paying for someone like a coach or someone to be able to help really break some of this stuff down. So the emotions are key, really, really key. Some of us experience really traumatic, really large emotional things that have weighed us down that we might even be thinking of. When we go through life, we start to become more aware of what has been controlling us and how that we react. And as soon as we turn the subconscious into conscious thoughts and actions, that's when we can start actually moving forward with it. What I will also mention is that once we've had our meal and physically we've come to a point where we're good, but mentally our mind wants more. You are going to experience this when transitioning to being raw vegan. Like, physically, hey, I've had enough. Like, either I've had a good amount of fruit, had a big salad, maybe I've had like a raw lasagna or like a raw burger or something that's a little bit more satiating, and I'm good. But the mental component of still wanting more is going to be there. So what do we do in that situation? And what don't we do? What we do, it's important to recognize the thought coming up, to breathe, to just be aware of it. Not, oh shit, like this thoughts come up again, or like, what do I do? And start to think in that and get into fear. It's just to breathe. It's okay, just be aware of the thought. Then once we breathe, we can focus on the next right action. We are not able to always control the thoughts that are coming up, but we can focus on, well, what's the next right action that I can take, and take that. Maybe it's enjoying something on your TV that you're watching. Maybe it's focusing on reading the book. Maybe it's calling a friend. Maybe it's washing the dishes. Like, what's the next right action? And it's very important to get very specific here, because our mind can get very overwhelmed with that thought, especially in early days. And then once we focus on the next right action, just focus on letting it go. Like, those thoughts that come up, we don't have to put power into those. If the devil knocks on our door, we do not need to open the door for him. We can leave it closed. The moment we open the door, and this is what I mean by things to not do, we don't go on Instagram or social media or TikTok and look at like all these foods that we could have. We don't look at restaurants that we could go, or maybe, I was at that restaurant or they're open now, or thinking of the food or like a very specific food. Not a good idea. We don't go to Uber Eats or like Deliveroo and have a look at the apps and say, which what I did so many times, start to curate the perfect meal in addition to what I just had. Not a good idea. These things are all not good ideas, and they start with the thinking, and then the thinking compounding and become overwhelming to the point where I just have to have something now. So the last thing I will mention is these things and transitioning to a raw vegan lifestyle will take time. And I know you probably don't want to hear it, because we live in a world today where instant gratification is a very real thing. And I have gone through many of this, whether it's alcohol, other substances, food, like there's plenty of things that I've gone into to give me that gratification. So things are going to take time. Now, when things take time, we don't think of like, how am I going to get through this next year? Like that's my goal of trying to be raw vegan for a year. A year, 365 days, that's insane. I'm never going to be able to do that. But can you do one day? One day at a time. Can you do that? And if you come to a moment, which I had many of these, especially in the first month, it felt like, and it felt very brutal for me, honestly, just the mental warfare of what was going on and detoxing and all the rest of it. When it's becoming even more full on and we're not able to focus on just the day, focus on one meal at a time. Like, take it, strip it back to just this moment. Let me just have this meal and I'll be okay. Let me just breathe through this. Let me go through the day. I've got one more day. And if we focus on the day at a time, what's going to start to happen, especially in the earlier stages, is we will transition. We will get up the days. We will become stable. And what will start to happen is our identity is going to start to shift. It's going to shift from someone that constantly binge eats, overeats, overconsumes, cannot control it, is never going to be able to do it, to someone who's stable, who can have life situations come up and move through them, not binge, not eat a whole bunch of junk food, to work through it. This is going to take time, but it will happen. But what I'm going to recommend is, if you are still struggling with this and you're feeling these feelings and you don't know what to do, and maybe you've tried a couple of these things from watching the video and it still isn't working, there's going to be a link down below to book a call. The call will literally outline really what's going on, get a good understanding, and put a plan of action in place so you can become stable with this, so that you can work through it and start to have more freedom in your life, more stability, and do the things that you really want to do, achieve the health that you really want to achieve. I get it. I struggle with this for a very long time and I've moved through it. So yeah, link down below, book a call, and we can take it from there. Otherwise, all the best with your journey and take care.